Hi folks, this is all the fruit, and here I have the Tomatillo, a unique little fruit with an incredible history. Well, what's the Tomatillo? Well, the name might suggest that it's a type of small tomato. However, when you look at the calyx here, which basically encloses the fruit until it gets more or less ripe, you notice that, well, it might be in the same family as the tomato, in the family of the Solanaceae, but it's not in the genus Solanum or Leucopersicum like tomato. It's in the genus Physalis. And yeah, it's not being used like most of the Physalis, which most of the usable Physalis we use as fruit, but this one is used as a vegetable, and that's probably also the reason it got the name Tomatillo, little tomato, because it's a little bit similar to tomato in its use. Actually, it's being suspected that it was cultivated on a much larger scale in Central America before the European conquest compared to the tomato. Yeah, like Aztecs and Mayas and other cultures of Central America, for them it was quite important. Well, then later it came to Spain and Portugal, and at first it was quite popular here until it got replaced by the tomato. Later it got replaced by the tomato also in Central America. It is being rediscovered only recently, like in the last 50 years, by the Mexican and other cuisines. It is naturalized in many warm parts of the world, in many warm and tropical and subtropical parts of the world. And it also grows wild or feral around vegetable gardens and fields in Mexico. And actually plants with smaller fruits are being harvested from the wild or feral state and being sold for higher prices, so much higher that a lot of people nowadays cultivate tomatillos with smaller fruit and sell them as wild tomatillos. Well, here in southern Portugal in February, those things were prohibitively expensive. €22 a kilo. I paid €2 for those 3 little fruits. That's like $2.50 or something like that. And this stuff basically grows like a wheat in conditions like here in Lisbon. Well, I don't think it will grow that well in winter. It wants the same growing conditions as a tomato, even slightly warmer. We are in February now, nice sunny day. Lisbon has no frost, but still, I'm pretty sure that in winter they grew it. Well, I think in winter they grew it in a greenhouse, although I saw a lot of Physalis pruinosa being grown outdoors and growing and fruiting perfectly well throughout the winter. Well, tomatillos, why did they fall out of favor compared to the tomato? Well, you can use the tomato in many more different ways. And it seems that the tomato is more resistant against mold or other things. Those fruit here, despite being so expensive, they actually already past their prime. This one definitely. And even those here. Basically, you have to buy them while they are still green, firm and hard. And the calyx, the back they are enclosed in, has to be green and fresh too. So those are already a bit past their prime, and this one, basically, I think in Mexico nobody would buy it. Well, other reasons tomato has become more popular is tomato is more colorful. This thing, well, it's green while it's unripe, nothing special. When it gets ripe, it has such a pale yellow compared to the bright red or sometimes orange, purple, pink colors of the tomato. It's not so nice. Also, the tomato is more versatile. This is basically mostly used in salsas, tamales, curries, vegetables, stir fries, but not many other things. It's not being used fresh. I don't think they make some ketchup out of it, although they might. Yeah, it's being usually used with chilies because supposedly the both taste complement very well. Well, I think I've eaten those fresh once or twice many years ago. I even forgot the taste. I've eaten them in salsas a couple times ago. Now let's see what they taste like, or let's taste what they taste like. Here I have the other half of this one. This one is already past its prime too. It tastes good, umami and sour. A bit more sour than umami, but the umami taste is strong. Stronger than in a green tomato, that's for sure. Not bad. Now the ripe. The skin is pretty tough. I'm spitting out the skin. The skin is much more tough than tomato skin. This also might have been the reason it became less popular, because tomato, you can eat it with the skin. This here has quite tough skin. Now I'm trying this ripe fruit. Completely different taste. Now I see why they like the unripe ones better. This has a completely different taste. It has nothing to do with this here. It's not bad, it's just a bit boring. It's like a boring Physalis pruinosa. What is Physalis pruinosa? Ground cherry from the same genus. It's like a boring ground cherry. No sweetness, a bit more tough than a ground cherry. Big. I think ground cherry, yeah, it's good that they have a small size, because if they were big, I wouldn't like them so much. The taste of the ground cherry is probably better consumed in smaller amounts. So this here, no trace of umami. No trace of umami at all. Basically no sourness. Okay, maybe a trace of sourness. Maybe even a trace of umami, but I'm not sure. Also a trace of sweetness, but I think you can see it's a little bit dry. The flesh is white because of all the air inside. It has the typical ground cherry flavor, which is different from all other Physalis I have tried. But yeah, basically it's boring. When it's ripe, it's boring. Now I understand why nobody buys them ripe. This year was better even as a fruit to eat out of hand. Yeah. This was its taste-wise closer to a tomato. But it lacks the sweetness of the tomato. It lacks the sweetness of the tomato. It has a tough skin. It doesn't have the nice red tomato color. So the green one, I would say, is like an inferior tomato. The ripe one is like an inferior ground cherry. Now I understand why it's not so common in European cuisine. I also understand why it's still quite common in Mexican cuisine. I've eaten it in salsas, and yeah, with chilies it's nice. It basically makes all the chili dishes less hot. I also understand why it's quite popular in some Indian and African cuisines. They also have a lot of sauces and curries that can use it. But I also understand why it's basically absent in the European cuisine and why the tomato displaced it. Yeah. It's basically like a second-grade tomato for 20 times the price. So folks, this was the Tomatillo, Physalis philadelphica. That I forgot to say that it's not from Philadelphia. I don't even know why it's called Philadelphica. Stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful city of Lisbon, where most fruit are cheap but the tomatillo is expensive. And of course, don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe.